Hi all, welcome to the Paul Chandler Show. I'm your host, Paul Chandler. In tonight's episode, we're going to look at to see how a transplant is performed. So we're going to be using the Padzilla, and we're going to be watching an animation of the transplant. So don't worry, it's not going to be a live action video in itself. But we'll be using the Padzilla, looking at a hand transplant animation video being performed, and I'll be describing what's going along during the transplant, so that way as far as coders and auditors, when we're looking at words on the paper or on a computer screen, we can see what the doctor actually did during the procedure. So stay tuned, we'll be right back using the Padzilla, and we'll be watching on how transplant is actually being performed. Welcome back everyone. So tonight we'll be using the Padzilla again, and we're going to be seeing how a hand transplant surgery is being performed. So with the hand transplant, the patient will be placed on the table, and they'll be generally placed supine, so that means they'll be face up. And in this case, the patient is getting a right hand transplant. They'll be placed under at least a regional anesthesia. Then a tourniquet is placed around, in this case between the patient's elbow and then the shoulder. So that way then that will restrict blood supply from below where the tourniquet is, from the elbow down to where the hand will be. That way it'd be easier to do during the surgery. So the transplanted hand with the radius and the ulna, they're cut so that way they can be put together at the most even spots. And then to support it, then they'll have a T-shaped screw and plate being put in at the radius, and then on the side of the ulna, on the lateral side of it, a screw and plate will be placed in as well. Now, once the two bones, the radius and the ulna, are connected, they have to start placing all the other parts that they have in the body. So then the doctor they'll look at one tendon at a time. This is a very strenuous procedure because they'll do one tendon at a time on one side and then flip the hand over and they connect all the tendons also other. That way we have to make sure, for example, if you connect the wrong tendon, next thing you know, you may be wanting to point, and next thing you know, you're giving the patient the birdie instead. So gotta make sure that their tendons are connected. After that, they use a microscope, and then now they're gonna be connecting the nerves. So that way they're seeing in the nerves in a more precise manner, connecting all the nerves and placing stitches on each nerve. And then we nose through, now we gotta connect the arteries. So between the tendons and the nerves, now then they're connecting all the red arteries together, placing sutures on those arteries for the connection. Then they'll go through and then they'll flip the hand over. And then on the reverse side, now they're connecting all the veins together. That way then, as far as the blood flow, it goes how it's supposed to be normally, through the arteries and the veins on both sides. And then at that point, then the bones are connected, the tendons, the nerves, and the blood vessels are. They'll lower the tourniquet, and then before they close up the skin, they'll open it back up, so then that way they can ensure that all the blood is flowing how it's supposed to be. They'll place the sutures in, and then as you can see, be able to test, the patient can move his or her new hands and fingers across the board. So that's how we do a hand transplant surgery. And first they'll take the radius and the ulna, they'll have them trimmed, so that way they have the two bones will connect together. And they'll place the metal screws or plates in to secure them. And then they have to reconnect all of the tendons, the nerves, the arteries, and the veins. Once all that testing is done, the patient's able to move the hand correctly. Then they'll close up the skin. Next thing you know, the patient has a new hand. That's how you do a hand transplant surgery. I do thank you for watching this episode of the Paul Chandler Show. And also remember that earlier this month, we did launch our third company, the Specialty Coder Institute. So visit specialtycoder.com, and that way you can look at all the new credentials that are all fill in the blank, the high quality credentials that coders should need when they're looking for either a career advancement or career placement. That's specialtycoder.com. I do thank you for watching this episode of the Paul Chandler Show, and have an awesome rest of your day.